Hello there everyone, and welcome to today's video here on my channel. Today's video is me discussing with you the book that just recently came out, that is Trials of Apollo by Riordan. I've been anticipating the Trials of Apollo since the first announcement on October 7th, 2015, when we learned that this was going to be a full 5-book series. I'm ecstatic for this series. I finished this book in a week because I was testing in my high school, and so I'd finish the test and just have tons of free time, so I managed to finish the entirety of Trials of Apollo in 1 week. About Trials of Apollo, basically, if you've read the Percy Jackson series, you know about Percy and you know about Camp Half-Blood, and you know how all of that works. Ever since the war happened with Gaia, Zeus has kind of been trying to find someone to pin it on or put the blame on, because he doesn't want to blame himself or, anything like that. So he decides to blame Apollo. Decides to blame Apollo mostly because of things that Octavian did, which Apollo doesn't really deems back to him, but he ends up getting blamed for the war with Gaia, and so to punish Apollo for that war, Zeus makes him a mortal human. He is cast down to Earth as a normal 14-year-old boy. He has acne, he has fat, he's lanky, and he just isn't at all what he used to be. In this book, we have Apollo trying to get through him being mortal, and so he has to go through these different trials in order to be redeemed back into Olympus. And so this is the story of him trying to figure out what those trials are going to be whilst trying to stay alive. Being that Apollo is this immortal god who's been alive for 4,000 years, he has many, many enemies. So you find him in struggles with gods that were not in favor of him, and mortals that don't quite like him, and his own children, and it's just all over the place with him, and it was amazing. The book is hilarious. You thought Percy Jackson was funny, then you thought Heroes of Olympus was funny. This book is so funny. Apollo just deems everything he's really condescending throughout the entire novel, so everything is just this weird sense of humor towards everything, and he knows so much because he's the god of knowledge, so he's just really witty, and it's really funny, and I highly recommend. Being that the Percy Jackson series is my all-time favorite series of all time, this book is just adding on to that. We get to see cameos from some of our favorite characters, and it was just amazing. I loved that they were able to play into it, even though they aren't the main characters. I still love that we were able to put them into the story. So if you have read Percy Jackson and the Heroes of Olympus, I definitely recommend you jumping into Trials of Apollo. This series is going to go fabulous places. I cannot wait. 5 out of 5 stars. If you haven't completed Percy Jackson and Heroes of Olympus, I do recommend that you read those before you read Trials of Apollo, because if you do not, then you will be spoiled for many things in those books. So unless you just don't want to read them and read this one, but if you have any plans in the future of reading those books, definitely read them before reading Trials of Apollo. That's all I really have to say about Trials of Apollo that is non-spoilery, so if you haven't read this book and you would like to, please leave now before I get into some spoilery discussion topics. So we've all read the book, right? There is something about this book that was so nostalgic to me, and it was so great. I haven't read a book this fast-paced, I think, in a really long time, and it just made me so unbelievably happy to be reading it. So when we started off in the alleyway of with the dumpster, what were you expecting with those two guys at first? Because when he started talking about their boss, I had no clue that it was going to lead into the triumvirate, whatever that word was, about the 3 Roman imperial emperors that then want to be gods. I did not see that coming at all. And then the fact that they actually sponsored Octavian in the demigod civil war, and they also sponsored Luke during the Titan War, was just absolutely crazy. We never actually figured out how Luke and Octavian were able to get all the sources that they did, and now it's kind of clicking into place, which is almost crazy. So when we first met Meg, I definitely knew that Meg was going to be a daughter of Demeter, just because with the powers she had, it was kind of like, what else can she be? For a second, with the whole fruit thing, I thought she might be a daughter of Dionysus, but then I kind of like quickly changed to Demeter after we got her more with like Peaches. Yeah. I love that Apollo is bisexual, like, and he's so openly bisexual, and it's just really refreshing to see in like this book, because this is a children's story, like, kind of. It's on the grade of like middle grade and YA. It's kind of like in the brink, because I wouldn't say it's full children's or full middle grade, but I wouldn't say it's full YA. So I really like where this book lays in that. Apollo is just so openly bisexual, and he says, yeah, I can be in love with guys and I can be in love with girls. There's so many bigger problems in Olympus. This isn't one that bothers me. And it's just, that is such a good message to give to young children. It's like, be accepting of those people, and you don't have to hide it, because it's not something you should hide. And that was just a really powerful message that I think was played amazingly in the story. I knew Meg was going to be the traitor. When first brought up that there was going to be a traitor amongst his friends, you know, you start thinking, you're like, oh, is it going to be Austin? Is it going to be Kayla? Is it going to be Will? But then it's quite obvious that it's going to be Meg. And that just kind of like hits you, because you think that's what it's going to be, but then you kind of doubt it because you don't want it to be Meg, but then it ends up being Meg, just because Meg is so innocent. She's only 12 years old. She just learned that demigods were even a thing because she's kind of been hidden from it, and it's just like, you weren't expecting that, but when it came, I definitely saw it coming, but I didn't want it to be true because I loved Meg so much, and now she's gone, and I don't know how I feel about this. We need to get her back. This whole thing with the Beast being Nero and just all of that, and how Meg calls him the Beast, it's kind of like this huge like abuse story almost, and it's terrifying. This, like, the whole time you're reading it, you start to comprehend what it means, and as Apollo starts to comprehend what she's actually going through, it's just terrifying. Like, she's being raised by someone who killed her father, then like claims to be her father, then like abuses her and like uses her and threatens her with the abuse to use her and get her to do what he wants her to do, which is just like, that saddens me so much. But it's also like it plays the abuse story also really well into it, and you don't see it coming, and it's really important in the story, and I was completely blown away by how he was able to incorporate that. The cameos that we see from our other characters from the other two series just warmed my heart so much. When I first got the book, I read up to the page where he decides he needs to go find Percy Jackson, and as someone who's read the Percy Jackson's books since you were 7 years old, it makes you so happy, like so nostalgic, and it was just a Friday and the sun was out, and it just gave me so many feelings of back when I read the Percy Jackson series, and I was so excited. And then we go and we find Percy, and it's just amazing. If you know, or if you read Blood of Olympus, you kind of know that this feeling you had after finishing that book of just unresolved, you got no closure with any of those characters. Like, it was just kind of like open books for every single one. So I feel like this book was kind of like, you knew it had to be something, because he can't just end the book with no closure for any of the characters. Like, we didn't get anything. So the fact that we see them in these books is like great, because now we're actually going to see what happened to them. Like, we hear of where Percy went. He's in high school, he's on the swim team, he's gonna apply to college in New Rome, him and Annabeth are gonna go to New Rome together. It's just like, that's what I wanted, but we didn't really get it in Blood of Olympus. We kind of just got like talks about it, which I didn't appreciate. Frank and Raina are over proctoring at Camp Jupiter, and then Piper and Jason live with Piper's father on the West Coast, and like they're going to high school. Leo. We get an update on Leo. Everyone is like, where did Leo go? Nobody knows what happened to him, but none of them think that he's dead. They all think that he's alive, but it's just like he hasn't messaged them or come to Camp Half-Blood, so they don't know where he is. And this part was just like crazy to me. I'm like, how do you not know like, why wouldn't he come back? So I was like all over the place with that. We know that he went to the island to get Calypso, and we knew that he got off the island because the end of Blood of Olympus is him getting off the island, but we don't see anything from that. So like when he got the prophecy from the grove, I was like, this has to somehow relate to Leo, because like we get the line about Festus and then we get the line about like son of fire or something, and I'm like, it's gotta be Leo, it's gotta be Festus, it's going to be Leo, Calypso, and Apollo on this great mission. I am a little disappointed that Percy's not going to be on the mission, but you know, this whole thing that Percy has now with Annabeth of like, I don't want to die, so I'm not going on this great mission. And it's like, I understand where he's coming from. It's like, he's already, you know, saved the world so many times, and he's been in near-death experiences so many times, and I understand that he wants to be alive for his mother and his soon-to-be sister and his girlfriend, but like, come on, Percy, you're not done. You're not done, boy. We got many more wars to be fighting. But I am super excited that it's going to be Leo and Calypso and Apollo. That's just going to be a great story. Who knows who else we're going to pick up. We're definitely going to have to get Meg back sooner or later, so she's going to be on our team, and I'm really excited for where we're going. I also love that we get to see from Will and Nico and like their relationship together, and when Apollo first gets to meet his children and he realizes that Will is gay and he just does not care. Like, he's like, I don't know how I feel about my son dating a D'Angelo, a son of Hades, but then he's like, oh, you mean how do I feel about my son dating another man? And he was like, I do not care. Because it's like, it's so great. He's so accepting, and I loved it. Him as a character, you get to see his arc and his character development. And this is only the first book, so we're definitely going to see his character development throughout the series. And I think that's what's going to get him back on Olympus. Him not being this whole, like, self-concerning, really condescending, you know, all-knowing God. He's actually going to care for people, and he's going to, like, start considering love, and it's going to be more about him and his character development, and then also saving the world from this, you know, really big war that's going to come up sooner or later. Another thing, do you think there's going to be a love interest anywhere in this series? Like, I don't know, because, like, throughout this first book, we get a lot of hints at Daphne and that other guy he talks about that I could never pronounce his name. It was like Hyacinthus or something. But you just, like, he says he only ever loved two people, but he's been with many, but he only ever loved those two. And it's just like, do you think that we're going to introduce a love interest in this series? Or do you think we're going to focus more on him, character development, like I said before? And I'm not opposed to a love interest, but I could see how we could go this entire series without one, and I'm interested in seeing where Rick goes with that storyline, or are we going to do anything else with that? Did anyone else think that Chiron in this book, or Chiron, or however you say the centaur's name, did anyone else think that, like, he was not himself? I was so confused on his decisions. Like, his whole thing with Apollo and, like, not letting him leave the camp, and then that whole thing with the obstacle course, I was so confused about. Because, like, Harley makes this obstacle course that could kill you and could, like, in many ways threaten your life. And then, like, this whole time, like, we have lost 5 campers to the woods, and we're going to have a obstacle course that could kill other campers. And I'm like, why are we doing this? Apollo just got cast down as immortal and just got to Camp Half-Blood, and you're already gonna do this? And he's just, like, so unfazed by the threat of death. And I'm just like, who is this guy? This does not sound like Chiron at all. And so I actually have a theory that he's being, like, brainwashed or something. And so he was brainwashed into leading them into the labyrinth. So I'm not trusting him completely at the moment. I'm kind of, like, avoiding the overall topic of, like, the oracles, because I'm not completely understanding it entirely. The Oracle of Delphi is a person, and it is also a place. And so far, the person is Rachel Elizabeth Dare, but she doesn't have any powers because all of the oracles are kind of, like, affected because Python, this big snake dude, has taken over the Oracle of Delphi. I'm kind of confused on that part a little bit, so I'm kind of, you know, I'm interested in where we're actually going with that, but that is the only part that, like, was just a little fuzzy to me. I was kind of all over the place. Excited for this, where this series is going, and I need more books because I need more answers to some questions that were opened up in this book, but I'm super excited for where we're going. I think this this series could possibly be one of my favorite ever, because like the writing style is already above Percy Jackson, because Percy Jackson's kind of like elementary school range, so this one's hits more of like 8th, 9th, 10th grade range, which I appreciate. And so this, I think, is also told better because it's like less focus on one person. But I also liked it better than Heroes of Olympus, just because I liked Apollo the character better than most of the characters in Heroes of Olympus. Don't get me wrong, I love those characters, but he was way funnier. I also think that him and Leo are just going to be like the funny people, most funny people ever, because now they're going on a quest together and it's just going to be amazing. I'm also excited for him to get his powers back. Like, I think they're slowly going to come back, and like they slowly started to come back in this book, so I think they're going to come back even more in the next couple books, and I'm excited about that because I think he can do some serious damage with his voice and his guitar playing abilities and his archery, and I'm just excited because he is like the unlimited god of everything, and I'm excited for the powers that he's going to get back. It's going to be fun. So those are my thoughts on Trials of Apollo. Make sure to mention anything down below if I missed something, or tell me your thoughts if you read this book down below, and I will be happy to read them and respond to them, and I love doing that. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and make sure to subscribe if you want to see more of me. I make videos every week, so subscribe if you want to see more. Hey. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you're having a grandiose day wherever you are in the world. Don't forget to be awesome. Bye! Also, I recently cut my hair really short. How do you like it?